My Arc 8 Phase review videos are not even close to done. In fact, I've only just released Phase 1 and have started working on Phase 2 last time. I waited until all of them were done to talk about Arc 7 as a whole, but I figured I should talk about Arc 8 while it's hot, since it just concluded and all that. And I'll talk about my thoughts of the arc overall, but my opinions will get more developed as I work on the Phase videos, since I have to reread them like 3 times, so if you want super in-depth opinions, make sure you check those out when they come out. Fair warning now, these aren't just minor spoilers in this video, these are massive, omega, gargantuan spoilers in this video. Arc 8 has one of the biggest spoilers in the entire series, and of course we will be talking about it at some point. Okay, now that that is out of the way, I want to get straight into the things I think are great or enjoyed about Arc 8, which there is quite a bit of. Arc 8 might just contain some of my favorite character writing in the entire series. Subaru has some exceptional character work in this arc, and of course, by extension Arc 7, but you can go back and watch my other Arc 7 videos to get my thoughts on that. The Valekia section of this story starts with a simple premise for Subaru, tackling heroism. Since this content starts with Rem waking up and then denying that Subaru is a hero, Subaru has to go on a journey of discovering what heroism means to him. He has to discover how far he is willing to go to save someone, and first and foremost, he must be comfortable with who he is as a person and begin that path of self-actualization before he can achieve those goals. Both of his encounters with Todd and Vincent in Arc 8 are tremendous for defining his own limitations, and for the acceptance of not being able to save everyone, which is why the end of this arc hits especially hard. He was once criticized for deciding who lives or dies based on his own fickle whims, but at the very end, Subaru lets someone else decide their own fate, as his knees hit the floor and he watches them fade away. This is something no other version of Subaru would be capable of doing. Vincent Valekia is another ReZero standout, keeping consistent with Tappei's wonderful, nuanced, emotional character writing by having his mask regularly slip off to reveal what lies underneath. As Subaru fought to live, Vincent fought to die, and Subaru gets to come full circle from Arc 4 and give Vincent a wallop to his cheek, as he tells him that just because his enemy is as formless as fate, he shouldn't give up. His deep care for his loved ones coming through after volumes of him trying to pretend that it doesn't exist catapulted Vincent into my S tier real fast. Todd also quickly became one of my favorite ReZero antagonists throughout Arc 7, and Arc 8 Phase 1 set him in stone as one of my favorite characters in the story. A wonderfully twisted mirror into a Subaru that could have been controlling, isolated, and gunning only for his own well-being, with an incredible conclusion that was one of my favorite parts of the arc. Revealing his status as a werewolf and looking for some form of validation of his fears through Subaru only to be denied. That line in particular where Subaru tells him to not use his blood as a reason as to why they're here now was so good, man. Additionally, Todd being a werewolf did not ruin the dynamic for me. I talk about this more in the Phase 1 video, so if you want my specific thoughts on that, feel free. I mentioned a while ago that I didn't really buy into all this Cecilos hype. Well, I still don't. But he's definitely a lot cooler with Arc 8. His fight with Arakia alongside Al was just extremely fucking cool, dying over and over waiting for Al to notice to throw him the sword. I haven't really deep Cecilos much though, so give me some more time to get to Phase 4 in the Phase videos. Also, I like to think that I am the #1 Aldebaran stan in the ReZero fandom, so of course, Phase 4 and Phase 5 had me drooling like an idiot, man. The Al content was so good. I'll get more into my specific thoughts as I go through the Phase videos, but I had quite a bit of theorizing with this arc. The Globe Theory stocks are up. A specific auto theory I have that a select few of you might know about went up. Echidna teaching Al how to use his authority was another one I had, which, well, might as well have been confirmed at this point. I've always been a believer in the Observers having no real power, and I think I can substantiate this a bit more when we get deeper into the Phase videos. Phase 5 was fucking great. Sphinx, the antagonist of the arc, was solid. She was a really cool character that helped me come to understand the central theme of this arc, and Learn by Death was a really good device for the plot. In my opinion, Arc 8 is about growing after accepting what cannot be. Subaru accepts that he can't save everyone. Madeline has to accept that Balroy is gone, medium 2. Vincent must accept that those he loved are gone, and he must push forward in the fight against fate. Arakia has to accept that she cannot be with Priscilla. Olbart comes to accept his dream of leaving his mark in history has come and gone. Lip Burial had a wish that he could never make true, to get back at the kingdom for what they did to him during the Demi-Human Civil War, and install Priscilla onto the throne to that end. This drive lit a spark inside of Sphinx and caused her to hate Priscilla, the living embodiment of progress, which ironically served as a blockade to her progress. Even until the end, Sphinx could not win as herself. She had to become a sham of Echidna, never truly becoming the one she desired to be, and at the same time, as Subaru comes to grips with the identity as Natsuki Subaru, she utilized the core bugs to make zombies or false recreations of those who had been revived as zombies, and at the very end of it all, tried to utilize a shambling recreation of Moguro Hagane to achieve victory, still at the very end, not being herself. While Subaru uses his own unique power, no authority, divine protection, or spell, but his ability to inspire others. Sphinx is the antagonist of Arc 7 and 8, but what is really the enemy, and by and large the enemy of humanity, is a rejection of change and growth. Tappei once described archbishops as people incapable of change, a group of people that Subaru holds strong contempt for, but this arc may represent him closest to archbishop behavior. It's not because of return by death or anything like that, but it's because of his fear of being himself, his fear of failure. He stopped progressing as a human being. He stopped pursuing growth and chased the back of separate identities that made up aspects of himself that represent regression instead of growth. That is why Olbart once equated him to a monster for his weaponization of infantilization. Not because Return by Death is raw, but because he stopped growing. Which makes it all the more wonderful that what undoes his infantilization isn't Olbart, since both of his arms got blown off, but Subaru seeing Sphinx try to chase an afterimage of herself that she'll never obtain, and it made him stop and realize what's going on, and he underwent some form of self-actualization, accepting that he is Natsuki Subaru and finishing his moment of self-acceptance from Arc 6, turning big again. Family trauma also seems to run deep in this arc. The Natsuki family name, Cecilius and Rowan, the Valikia family reunion, the Rem content, flop and medium. There's perhaps more you could dive into this, but I'll save this stuff for future Arcade videos. Arc 8 has some of the craziest and most exciting set pieces of the series, giant kaiju battles in the middle of Lopagana, mass offensives as literal stars collapse, and fronts mobilizing against the meteor of the Crystal Palace. Incredible things to imagine in my mind before Asuka draws them, and makes them way less exciting. I won't put this in the things I dislike about the arc because it really can't be changed at this point. Asuka's art is so fucking uninspired and disappointing. There are very, very few illustrations in this arc that actually impress me. Most of them seem like copy-pasted poses or the classic Asuka, someone facing the camera doing a face and maybe holding a weapon. Real ones remember how one of my potential criticisms of ReZero going forward, because of all the fake-outs and moments like Phase 6, is that there is a reasonable worry about the future of ReZero's stakes because Tappei had bent over backwards numerous times to avoid killing a character, until now. Just in case you are somehow still here, massive spoiler ahead, Priscilla is gone. This is one of those situations where I'm extremely glad to be wrong, and not only is her death well executed in terms of the scene itself, but it's exactly what you should strive for when killing a character because the implications of her demise have massive, far-reaching consequences. What does it mean for Subaru in his ideology of heroism, and after having made such a big decision to let someone die? How will this affect Aldebaran, who was already emotionally destroyed and traumatized by failing once before, and is now in the know about Return by Death if he wasn't already? How will this affect Emilia and her standing in the royal selection now that they fought side by side in a nation they shouldn't be in, and her competition was found dead? How will this affect Vincent, who has now lost two of the only people close to him? What direction will Heinkel go in now, since Priscilla was the only part of his life that grounded him? How will Otto feel now that the exact thing he was worried about came true? I have a lot to say about Aldebaran, especially with that new prologue chapter we got at the end of Arc 8. Not enough for a new Al video, but a lot. In my old Al video, I mentioned how there's a chance that Aldebaran has his own 775 reset, where he goes back way further than he ever thought possible. Well, I think the prologue might point me in the direction of this being the case, but it's more than once. And Aldebaran has relived different timelines of ReZero, knowing him, millions of times. I believe almost everything I said in the Al video still holds up. He's a foil for Subaru who failed, but it lets us know how many times he's tried and how long he went without giving up. I had also theorized multiple years ago that Aldebaran was not actually named Aldebaran because he's from Japan. That's not a very Japanese name, and that is essentially confirmed here. It's a name bestowed upon him by Echidna, which leaves us some interesting room because personally, the Aldebaran prologue being his name chapter was pretty disappointing, but since there are still possible multiple names he can go by, that is still open for us. What wasn't accounted for in my video is that Subaru was in the equation the entire time. My video was under the assumption that Al gave up and then Subaru was brought in to take over, but no. Natsuki Subaru was seemingly always involved, and Echidna probably informed Al of Subaru's failure countless times. Aldebaran would try and fail, Subaru would fail, and Aldebaran would have his big reset. How does Subaru play into it all? It's hard to say. He plays some role in the grand scheme to kill Satella, but this timeline is different. This is a timeline where Subaru wants to save her. We've already seen a couple of differences in this timeline from Aldebaran's expectations. Firstly, it's not as if he foresees the horrible things happening in Arc 7 and 8, he's just as blind as everyone else, but if he had redone this millions of times, this would have been second nature to him. The Arc 4 web novel also touches on Subaru arriving in Echidna's dream palace ahead of schedule, and of course, Rem is alive, something that confused and frustrated Aldebaran greatly. Whatever happened to knock this timeline off course to be the true final timeline happened before Arc 4 probably. Perhaps it's as simple as Subaru saving all these people like Emilia, Rem, and Otto that changes reality. Aldebaran was requested by the witches to kill Satella, and it's likely his failure is in large part why this large time loop is occurring, and as far as all these characters are concerned, killing her is the only way out. but Subaru's goal will be to solve this never-ending time loop, and by extension Aldebaran's suffering, by saving Satella rather than killing her. Perhaps that's what causes the failures to begin with, but maybe this time will be different. It's a piece of Subaru we already saw in his fight with Todd. The one thing he would never do no matter what is give Todd what he wants, and to give it and kill him, making the infinitely harder decision to resist that fate he put him into. I also had a theory about Echidna's relationship with Al, but that has basically been all but confirmed. I had envisioned that Al would not understand his authority, hence why he's missing an arm, and he went to Echidna for guidance, and she would teach him how to use his authority, which is why the language he uses when engaging it is so similar to Sphinx, but that's basically confirmed, so we take those. These are all questions we'll have to wait and find out about, and in that vein, I want to shift from prose to waiting, and by that I mean things I'm waiting to see the fallout of that can impact my thoughts on the arc significantly. Personally, I think Return by Death and its secrecy is coming to a close. Arc-8 alone has the most amount of people perceiving Return by Death. Todd vaguely understood it, even if he didn't know the truth about it. Vincent referred to it as an authority and knew he had something. Cecilia quite literally understands his authority. Priscilla seemingly understood it, and by extension, as does Aldebaran, and of course, we have Beatrice seeing his suicide pill. I think it's also important to note that Arc-8 had a complete role reversal. At first, we had no idea what Al was really doing, but then we started seeing loops from his perspective, and stopped seeing Subaru's loops. I think what comes next for both Subaru and Aldebaran is quite important, and can really impact my thoughts on Arc-8. The final chapter heavily implied he was intentionally avoiding tough scenarios, so he's probably putting off thinking about what he's been doing this entire time as well. I think the future degradation between Subaru and Otto will also be extremely important, another long-lasting impact of the demise of Priscilla, but also because Subaru has been sidestepping any and all of Otto's desires to selfishly push for his own goals. Not that I even think Subaru is wrong for wanting these things, it's one of those situations where I see both perspectives, and obviously it's easy to side with Subaru because we know he has Returned by Death. Additionally, the response back home in Laguna Hill will be quintessential in deciding the final rating of this arc. For example, Emilia went to a nation she has no official business in, then a civil war started, and then people died, including one of her competitors. I mean, come on. Those are just a few things I'm waiting on. The follow-up to Priscilla in terms of both character and politics, Subaru and Aldebaran, Subaru and Otto. I'm sure other things I just haven't thought of yet. Oh, like Spica. I think how she is handled going forward is important, so I'll hold my tongue on her for now. Just know that I'm not super thrilled. Now, I've been going on for a few minutes about the great things about Arc-8 and how much potential it has, but to be frank, it's not my favorite arc. In fact, it's not even close. Because I feel like Arc-8 misses the mark on quite a few points that really hold it back. I mentioned that I liked Sphinx and called her a good antagonist, and to be honest, that's part of the issue. She's just a good antagonist. When you build up someone in the background of your massive sprawl of literature, including crumbs of her introduction and a multitude of side stories, only to kind of have her show up and lose in Arc-8, that's disappointing to me. What she did get, I was a big fan of, but she also sort of fell flat of her full potential, which is more or less what Arc-8 represents as a whole. She only had the chance to show off her character in Arc-8, which is only 5 books, but she also wasn't present for one of them, so that's 4 books before her defeat. The entire time I was reading Arc-8, I was just kind of hoping that Sphinx wouldn't be turned into a fodder villain to be disposed of in this arc, but yeah. Bringing a Ryuzu body into this and having all of these missed opportunities with Roswaal, Beatrice, or Garfield alone just feels like she didn't get to live up to her potential. This can also be felt with the zombie premise to begin with, mostly Balroy. We brought back all of these characters and none of them really did anything. Balroy didn't get to have any super impactful scenes with anybody he was closely related with. The flashback content with Madeline was good, but that's just a flashback. Undead Balroy kills Chisha, does some cool tricks, and then just becomes a good guy with no meaningful on-screen interactions with Madeline, Medium, Flop, or Julius, who was introduced in this arc for some reason. This brings me to my next point. Why were Julius and Anastasia even here? Well, of course, it was to bring in Hallibell, who, to be honest, is kind of mid. He also does not do anything besides be a write-in for Ygritte to fight a wolf person, and he contributes to a broader issue of Arc-8, which is the lack of pressure. Besides Ismail, because he was up against 2 weak people, I never felt at any point in time that any of the antagonists introduced in this arc were threatening, besides Sphinx. Let's see, we have Lamia. Oh, she doesn't really do anything and then loses instantly. We have Valgrind, who was a very imposing force from Battle Ballad. Oh, and he loses every time he's on screen instantly. We have Ygritte. Oh, he's a good guy now. Okay, we have Balroy. Oh, he's a good guy now. Oh, and he exploded. We have fucking Palladio. A big issue is that any of these potential threats were immediately neutralized because of people like Halliwell being here. One of the strongest in the entire world. None of what was happening felt like a true threat. In my opinion, the Arc-8 fights should have been arranged just a bit differently. We don't need Halliwell at all, because we don't need a write-in for a wolf to fight a racist. Maybe let Roswaal fight Ygritte or something, and let the Balroy fight be with Julius and Medium. weak antagonists, a general lack of pressure, and missed opportunities galore. The final icing on the cake of the Arc 8 flaws is the continuing trend of Arc 7's mass pacing and bloat issues. Phase 3 in its entirety, though necessary, is a fucking slog to get through, and Chapter 32 is being recognized by some as one of the worst chapters in the story because it's quite literally a nothing burger. Tappei's work schedule only continues to affect the story more and more, as unnecessary repetition and nothing burgers stack up to form entire droughts of interesting content. And that about sums up my quick thoughts on Arc 8, otherwise known as Vincent Valencia, the arc where Vincent Valencia doesn't do anything. Some of my favorite characterization in all of ReZero, with compelling thematic devices and wonderful set pieces, and incredible setup for the future of ReZero, but just falling short of what it truly could have been, and suffering from the same issues ReZero has been facing for years now. I am, however, extremely excited for Arc 9. Ranking the phases, it would be Phase 1, Phase 5, Phase 4, Phase 2, Phase 3, and ranking the arcs, my ranking will be 6 equals 4, 7, 3, 5, 8, 2, and 1. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for the funny YouTube algorithm. You can also become a YouTube member, which gives you access to behind-the-scenes content, a badge on comments and livestream chats, as well as the use of emotes and videos before their actual release. You can also check the description for socials like Twitter, where I'm objectively correct all the time, and Discord, where we talk about ReZero, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, and stuff like that. That's about it though. Thank you for watching. See ya.